Hello, and welcome once again to Ben and Melanie's Liberal Therapy Session, where we mourn the death of democracy so you don't have to. This is your host, Ben. I'm here with the other host, Melanie. Got a few things to talk about this week. The first article, well, actually, the first thing we just found a Newsweek article. I think I was reading it on Reddit, but can you scroll down a little?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yep. As a Newsweek article, a Canadian political scientist has urged his country's government to prepare for the possibility of the United States becoming a right-wing dictatorship before 2030. In an op-ed published, this is just some dude's opinion, right? But in an op-ed published in the Globe and Mail on Friday, Thomas Homer Dixon, an executive director of the Cascade Institute of Royal Roads University in British Columbia, warned his country had to prepare for the worst-case scenario. By 2025, American democracy could collapse, causing extreme domestic political instability, including widespread civil violence. Homer Dixon wrote, by 2030, if not sooner, the country could be governed by a right-wing dictatorship. We mustn't dismiss these possibilities just because they seem ludicrous or too horrible to imagine. In 2014, the suggestion that Donald Trump would become president would have struck nearly everyone as absurd. But today, we live in a world where the absurd regularly becomes real and the horrible commonplace. And they're not wrong, I feel, about that.
Nope.
The scholar added the U.S. is becoming increasingly ungovernable, and some experts believe it could descend into civil war. This is Newsweek.com has said anyway, so I feel like that's a fairly legit news source. Like I said, they're basically just publishing some dude's opinion, and not just some dude, but I mean, Dr. So-and-so's opinion in some university.
And let's face it, Canada's worried about an influx of a whole bunch of Americans.
Yeah, I think that's really what he's getting at. They're not really worried about Canada as much as they're worried about refugee crises.
Yeah.
If the United States splits up and everything like that, it just, woof. Yeah, they're going to be overwhelmed.
Because nobody's going to take over Canada. They're all very nice up there. They're too polite to be taken over. In the article, too, it talks about something else that I think is very important. In the next paragraph, it says, in November, more than 150 U.S. academics wrote a public letter in support of the Freedom to Vote Act, which deals with voter registration and access, and has not yet been passed. Those scholars warned that defenders of democracy in America still have a slim window of opportunity to act, but time is ticking away and midnight is approaching. So, what do you guys think about that? I think this is kind of crazy.
Well, again, I think it's some dude's opinion. It's something we should take seriously, though. That's I think that it's terrifying. We should take it seriously that any other countries are worried about this at all. I get it.
Because they're not in the middle of what we're living in right now with our media news cycle and stuff in their countries is different than ours. And for scholars in other countries to be worried is sort of a big deal, I think.
Actually,
we need to think about this a little bit.
I was going to say, this relates to something I just read to Marjorie Taylor Greene, the representative in the House one of the representatives from Georgia, was just, who actually, interestingly, apparently today was just banned from Twitter. But that's irrelevant, I guess, in this case. But apparently she was saying how, our country needs a national divorce. Red states versus blue states or something like that. We just need to split up and I don't know if she's alone in that sentiment. I hope she is. But I think somebody needs to tell her we've already done that. We already tried that. Over 600,000 people died in the American Civil War when that happened last time, and it didn't actually result in anybody leaving. But hey, I guess I don't know if she's probably not too familiar with history, in general. So that's So that is actually a sentiment that's out there. There's a lot of people that apparently just had it, frustrated with everything, don't trust the government, hate the government, hate anybody who represents the government, even local government, people they know even. So that's getting ridiculous.
I think that that is an outrageous statement and really dangerous for somebody in politics, in the government, to say. First of all, that's an elected representative. She's supposed to be representing everyone in her district, and I'm sure they're largely Republican, but still, I mean, that is a dangerous thing. And a lot of people, like you said, died in that. It split families up. I mean, we don't need to go back to that. We need to stay well away from that, is what I think. I think that, if we would all stop being on social media for a while and like just go have a cup of coffee with your neighbor, you might be able to stop the use of the labels and maybe like agree that, on some things like jobs or simple things that involve everybody's life at a local level, instead of these overarching themes here where just everything's being hammered at us all the time about our country being in a divide right now. And maybe we need to stop thinking it's in a divide and start just looking across the road. Look across your yard to your neighbor's house. Are they that scary? Do they think the same thing as you? Maybe not. Does that mean that you want a civil war? I mean, really?
Yeah.
I don't want people to die.
It feels like we're getting to that binary thing is ones and zeros. Or like everything is just either on or off. So you're either with us or against us. Going back to the Bush administration, that's quite a few years ago now, but like that attitude is bad, because there's like shades of gray. It's like the gun debate, right? It's like I can be a gun owner but be against guns being used in violent crimes.
Right.
There's and I can also be a gun owner and also be for universal health insurance. Like there aren't there isn't just like sides. It's not, everything isn't just like zeros and ones. And that's my point anyway. But that when it comes to that, that's really sad though that the rhetoric is getting that extreme now. We're back to civil warring rhetoric. I never even, they were already like 8 minutes in here or something like that, but I never even said thank you for everybody who's tuning in, by the way. We just kind of got on a roll there. Sorry about that. Thank you a lot for your support. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for all that. We welcome any feedback via email or Facebook.
Because what we're trying to do here is start a discussion. And, we want some feedback too. Like, we want to know what you guys think.
Yeah.
Do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us? I'd like to know.
But, yeah, totally. And, again, it's there's literally dozens of us now. Yay.
Yay.
So, like, there's dozens of people. Yeah, so we're, making a difference. Yeah, right. So we got to bridge this divide somehow. And I just feel like we're in a better position to do that. Or those of us that live out in rural areas that are more liberal or progressive people are probably in a better way to bridge that, in a better place to bridge that divide than a lot of people.
Because we live here.
Yeah.
We're not looking down at any of you because we live here too, Mm-hmm. And I know that, a lot of people feel like the coast look down on you or are being snooty or whatever. We are not snooty. We live next door and we are here, and we have a lot of the same problems out in the rural areas, regardless of which party you're with. I mean, let's make life better instead of worse. That's what I think.
Yep, I agree. Yeah, I think that it does. You do feel. I feel it. I feel like I said when I watch like Bill Maher, I watch a lot of political talk shows and stuff like that, and I do feel a sense of elitism. I can empathize with Republicans who vote for people like Trump as a big FU to what they consider to be like liberal elites on the coast, looking down on them, and so I can actually empathize with that. And this brings it. I hear stuff even on NPR. I'm listening to it, and they're saying things like Rust Belt, referring to like Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, all these states in this general sort of region. all the way over to, I suppose, like Pittsburgh, even, and Philadelphia, all the way across to, Detroit and then Chicago and stuff. And like that's just like, I don't know. I feel like that's kind of it sounds shitty when they hear Rust Belt. It just sounds shitty to me.
Yeah, like it's a dead industrial area.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, it's dead. Nothing happens there. It's rusting into the ground, and they've used that term like officially. It seems almost like I should say with very well meaning. NPR uses that term a lot, and I just feel like they don't understand how that just sounds condescending as hell in a way. Like oh, your area is like a decaying area. You should just let it die.
Like we're a garbage hole or something.
Yeah.
That in flyby states, flyover states.
What they call us flyover country.
Yeah, it's just like seriously, we exist here.
Yeah.
Hello.
No,
have you seen a map?
And I totally get.
We're most of the country.
I totally get here. How a lot of people in red states, they're just like, F you guys. They see that on various political talk shows. They see that sort of attitude coming from them, and then the other side is waiting for to embrace them. The Democrats are just kind of being assholey, be like, oh, we know what's best, because we're from California, and we're from New York, and we know what's best for you, and hell with that, right? Like I get that.
Mm-hmm.
That's like hell with that shit. That's elitist snobbery bullshit, Mm-hmm. And so I can kind of see. I totally get why that pushes people actually further right. That attitude, like further away from any sort of progressive politics and further into the hands of a really authoritarianism, really, into that sort of, because they're waiting and willing to just say, no, you guys are right, you are smart, that like people like Marjorie Taylor Greene are just there claiming to represent, and she's from the South in Georgia, right? But she's claiming to represent the people more,
Mm-hmm.
and people like Donald Trump represent the people like that, according to what he says, and even though he doesn't, obviously, but he obviously represents his own interest, mm-hmm. but he'll claim that over and over, and then a lot of people really believe it, and they almost are like, it's almost like in the past they would have voted for somebody like FDR, a long time ago, and then like now those same people are voting for somebody like a right-wing authoritarian, without really knowing better.
Right.
Which is tragic, I suppose. Anyway, it doesn't help that the media, and even like what I would consider like NPR is awesome source of media, but or PBS, when they're using terms like Rust Belt or things like that, it just brings to mind like, poverty, poor, areas, jobless people, struggling and everything like that. When this area it has been bad. It's had its ups and downs, and like in Michigan in general. But it's been worse. I feel like it's getting better actually at this point, a lot better actually in some ways. So I don't know. Yeah, and the other thing I really wanted to say quickly before we move on to the next subject here was really like Michigan is incredibly diverse, has an incredibly diverse history. Motown, it's the home of Motown here in Detroit. It's, you can't understate that enough. It's technically more Muslims live in Michigan than any other place outside of the Middle East. It's not even, Dearborn, Michigan essentially has hundreds of thousands of Muslims, which is amazing. I almost voted, or I did vote for one for governor in the last election cycle. He did not win, but he was an awesome guy, man. He's a cool cat. Guy. I'm still subscribed to him on Twitter. Actually, let me look him up here too. But Abdul El Sayed, that's his name. All right, so Mel, what did you have to add there?
Yeah, I just want to say, I know us in Michigan harp on the fact that we had Motown, but seriously, we had Motown.
Yeah.
That was a big deal.
Yeah.
It still is. We still have musicians that come out of here.
Yep.
Come on now. We're not, off the map or something. Jeez. So, yeah, I think that people need to look at the Midwest differently.
Yeah.
The Midwest has got a lot going for it, and we are part of this country as well, so...
and incredibly important politically.
Yes, yes,
For sure.
we are.
But maybe, I mean, I also think incredibly, that the whole point here is, like, I think we're incredibly important culturally, as opposed to what maybe we were talking about earlier, like maybe people, when you, on the coast, like to think, it's like, oh, Ohio is boring, which I think Ohio is boring too, but yes. but that's not in the same way. So, like, they're really, it sounds really elitist and shitty in all kinds of ways, and it's like, stop it. I'm trying to, it's important to try to follow, was it John Greene, the author? Like, follow his example, man. Like, he stayed in Ohio, right? Well, he left, went to New York, became a famous author, but then he moved back. Sorry there, I meant to say Indiana. John Greene lives in Indianapolis, Indiana, not Ohio. But generally very famous Midwestern author who actually, I mean, one of the best authors of our time. Wrote Paper Towns, among many, 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 many other very famous books, right, that are very excellent. But he famously, I don't know if anybody's aware of this, but he lives in the Midwest. He lives in Indianapolis, Indiana. He lives here. He thinks that, that's just awesome. It's like, you need to bring culture and intellectualism and whatever it is you want, like, bring that to where you want to be. You don't just don't go to move to, I mean, it'd be really easy in a way for somebody like that to move to, like, Brooklyn or whatever, and maybe he does have residences, I'm sure, in multiple states. But I mean, I think his home base is Indianapolis, and
Michael Moore did that too. Like, he has a house here and he has a flat in New York City. And why? Because a lot of the media outlets are in the coast. What I think we're doing great right now is us among other people, because, like, John Greene and his brother have the YouTube channel too, is get the voices out from where you're at. If you have a talent or you want to change things, don't go somewhere else to change things. Change it where you're at. You can do this. Get the voices out there. Do your thing. The internet exists. You don't have to be in a certain area anymore. No. But you can definitely get the your thoughts on the landscape.
Yeah. Yeah, and you got one life, so I mean, you might as well do it, right? I mean, like, well, I guess as far as we know. So
depends on who you are or what you think.
Let's just assume that. Just for the sake of argument, at least. But so I really, really respect the Greene brothers for doing everything they do, and I'm sure they have multiple residences, same as Michael Moore, and I'm sure that, like, they're world traveler people and everything. But I really, really, really think it's awesome that, and like Michael Moore too, like, he owns a movie theater in Traverse City. He's like keeping that part of, anyway, his success. He's bringing some of that success back home, and that's super, super important, I think.
Yes.
All right. Well, what else do we have to talk about today?
I wanted to mention the movie that we just watched. We just watched the Don't Look Up movie, and it is on Netflix, and it has Leonardo DiCaprio in it, and it's about two scientists from Michigan in the movie that discover a comet heading straight to the
a scientist and his, like, PhD student.
His PhD student.
Yeah,
a comet heading straight for Earth and within 6 months. And then the whole movie is about how do we get the word out and get people to believe this is urgent, and how do we stop it? What do we do?
Should we say spoilers here if you haven't watched the movie? Maybe we should just say spoilers if we want to. We'll talk about this. So if you haven't watched the movie, Stop now, and we'll stop. You can listen to the rest of this after you've seen the movie. It's excellent. I think it's an excellent movie. Once in a generation movie. Reminding me of the same concepts, some of the same concepts and humor as, like, Dr. Strangelove, which was another great, great movie. And I'm trying to think of any other movies that are, like, similar in that sort of scope. But there's been others throughout the years. But yeah.
I wanted to say that I believe it was written before, in 20... Well, I gotta look it up. I just want to say that it really has a lens on where we're at. right now in our country, for as
Yeah.
how distracted we all are. I thought that was a big
The
point
media,
of it.
a big point of it was the media landscape. I feel, and like how just the whole thing works, which it doesn't really. That's the thing. Like we are unable to change actually sometimes, and it does feel like kind of like we're in late stage capitalism. Like if that
Yes,
makes sense.
it
I don't know
does.
that. I should tell you the definition of that. Let me look that up exactly to see what the definition of that is. But yeah, that was a great movie.
And I really like that the end scene. I will not describe the end scene for you in case you haven't seen it, but I like the reality of it. That's what I liked, and it stays with you. Like after you see it, you're thinking about it. Like, yeah, I can see how this compares to where we're at, and the inability. Like, even I mean, people say it's a climate change. It's a movie on climate change, and yeah, it probably is. But it also is like about a lot of things in our society right now that don't function right. Like
I think it's just about I think in general it's about like if we need to change, if we need to look, our country maybe, which our empire or whatever, is not particularly well suited currently to dealing with a crisis.
Yes,
and that's maybe what it is. But I mean, I totally think it's about climate change. It's totally a metaphor, allegory to climate change.
right.
Totally, and actually a little bit to COVID, really too, because we've obviously not been able as a society to deal with that. Late stage capitalism, really quick from Wikipedia here, is a term first used in print by German economist Werner Sambar around the turn of the 20th century. In the late 2010s, the term began to be used in the United States and Canada to refer to perceived absurdities, contradictions, crises, injustices, and inequality created by modern business development. So it's almost like a joke, It's just showing like the absurdities of capitalism currently, and that's how I view late stage capitalism anyway.
I'm still looking this up real quick here. I'm trying to find out when it was written because I'm pretty sure it was before that.
Yeah, we shouldn't rely on. I think one of the things that we should take from the movie, which I think is totally true, is we shouldn't rely on big, I guess, great men, quote unquote, like Elon Musk and people like that to save humanity. Like that might be a mistake. So maybe.
So it must have been written sometime in like before 2020 because it was filmed in December of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So it was before a lot of things that we know now have happened, and it's kind of parallel. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, that was a completely brilliant movie. Sorry about my rant about late stage capitalism too. I just find that there's a whole subreddit on Reddit about that. I find it fascinating. Can't get enough of it. Let's see. Definitely watch it. It's a must watch. I had another article here that I found. Okay. People strongly favor a fairer and more sustainable way of life in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, despite not thinking it will actually materialize, or that others share the same progressive wishes, according to new research which sheds intriguing light on what people have missed most and want for the future. And this was led by the University of Bristol in the UK, and apparently they did ask, I don't know if it's a survey or whatever, but however they did this, they did ask people in the United States and the UK. There was this, I found this on Reddit too, but I guess that like there was some criticism of it, and so who the heck knows if it's that accurate. I feel like it's worthwhile thinking about though that like we shouldn't be defeatist, I guess, in our attitudes. Like we think like, oh, we want change and we want to see better things happen for everybody, and like I just want to see the world be like Star Trek, and things work out with technology too. But like we're like, oh, but no one else wants that. But in reality, you never know. According to this, according to this article anyway, according to the scientists who did this research, they're saying that's not true. That most people might actually, the majority of people, I should say, share those attitudes. Actually, that the world will be a better place and should be a better place. It's just that most people apparently, maybe it's common among humans to believe that most people don't believe this. So then we like have like a self-defeating prophecy thing before it even happens. I just thought that was fascinating anyway.
I think people will think things like that and then make a Reddit post or a Facebook post and then feel like, okay, well, I did something. And
yeah,
I think people are having a hard time getting from the wanting it to be better to how do I do it? How do I help? How do I help change things? How do we do this?
You're right.
We need to stop feeling powerless because we are the people. All over the world, we are the people that can change things one person at a time.
Well, I mean, depends on where you live, I suppose. I mean, if you live in China, I don't know how much you're going to be able to, like... What are you going to do? You know, you can't really go up against the government, you know, so...
I'm not saying anything like that.
Okay,
what I'm trying to say is, like, we can make change in our communities. Like, Detroit, you know, and a lot of the areas that have now overgrown, they're making community gardens and they're making, you know, fresh food stands, which was like it was a fresh food desert before, you know. So I think that's amazing. And getting the community involved in doing things like that can change things for the positive.
Oh, yeah, totally. I just, I guess we should be happy that we live in a Western democracy where we have the ability to we still at least have the ability to make those decisions.
Right.
And to make those changes.
Yeah, because in a lot of part of the world, you don't have...
Yeah, well, that's what I was just saying. Like, if you want to try to make those changes in some places, you can't. So, like, we can vote here still. We can make those changes. So we shouldn't be so self-defeatist, apparently. According to this research, again, this is from, just to give you the source, it says just University of Bristol, or bristol.ac.uk is the website. It's an international study. They said it's during the late stages of the pandemic here, but I mean, I'm not really sure anymore if that means the same thing to everybody. I guess like late stages are relative. It seems like it's making quite a resurgence, so maybe we're not quite in the late stages. I want to be in the late stages, but anyway, there's a lot of hope for the future. There's a lot of things I think in that article about, you know, having more sustainable power and stuff like that, but and also just having like better paying jobs, more things, you know, like that, more probably social programs and stuff as well for many, but I don't know if any of that's ever going to materialize here too, and that's the point of the article too. Like I'm part of the problem by being defeatist, and I shouldn't be. So yeah. Right, my representative. Did we have anything else to go over today?
I don't know. Let me look at what we're doing here. Hold on. I did want to talk about grief a minute, because we're getting to the point here where in the pandemic we have had so many losses. And I think that has undeniably impacted everyone around the world. And we've all known somebody who has gotten sick or died. The changes in the way funerals are held and stuff over this past couple of years, it's really impacted people. It's made it hard to have closure when you can't be there with your family and hug them and stuff like that. And I just want to say I hope we're getting towards the end of this, and I hope that we've learned that as a community we need to hug each other and stick together more and support each other, because this is like the hard thing for everyone, and we need to give each other grace too.
Yeah, according to this, the United States alone is up to, this is January 2nd, 2022. The United States, though, is up to 824,000 dead. At this point, I believe that significantly outnumbers the Spanish flu of 1918, making this a very bad pandemic, whether we want to admit it or not. Let me see, actually, if I could find a source on that.
It's been very terrible on everyone. I mean, it's just been really hard to get through. Yeah.
Most people at this point probably know somebody that was affected at least affected negatively. Everybody probably knows somebody that was hospitalized. Most people probably know somebody that has died or is going to know somebody soon. So we're headed on a trajectory to over 1 million dead now. So yeah.
I want to say that for those out there who may be listening and are grieving, please do not hesitate to contact therapists. We need mental health services really bad right now because of all of the impacts of the pandemic on everyone, the isolation from children to elderly. We need to reach out for help. Don't reach in, reach out. There are people out here to grab your hand. So I just wanted to say that. And, those we love don't really leave our hearts. They're always here.
Yeah. On the same sort of subject, we haven't really gotten into this at all much, I feel like, as far as like coronavirus stuff. We haven't really talked about that much on this podcast.
Yeah.
I subscribe to a subreddit called Herman Cain Award, and that actually is depressing, as you would imagine, but it's something that it's probably good it's being done. Herman Cain was the... let's see here what his actual title was. Yeah. I know he's like a Trump supporter guy. Yeah. Famously, though, he was like a Tea Party guy from back in the day here. I think he famously ran for president, right? And then he was a big COVID denier guy, and then he died of COVID on July 30th, 2020. So relatively early in the pandemic at the age of 74, after saying it was all just a big load of hooey, basically. Famously, and so somebody after that has taken to start a whole subreddit based on a lot of people who have denied the existence of COVID have paid for it with their lives at this point. I actually sent you an article about this. There's actually a doctor who was posted, or somebody claiming to be a doctor. I can't verify this. Somebody claiming to be a doctor, I should say. Talking about his horrible experience in the emergency room in a hospital, dealing with a patient who was, on ICU, I'm sorry, dealing with a patient who was apparently denying that they were dying. I'll read it briefly here. It's just a couple days old, and we could even post it to the Facebook. I don't know. Again, that's not verifiable. This could be completely made up, could be hooey, but I don't think that it's that far-fetched as far as how some people are acting. I think we need to be kinder to our healthcare providers and know that they're under a lot of stress, like doctors and nurses and everybody in that field are under incredible amounts of stress right now. And maybe we should let them do their jobs, part of it.
I would like to say I've heard similar stories from my niece who graduated from nursing school right before the pandemic and went right into the ER and has been in the ER the whole time of this pandemic. And she has mentioned similar things happening with people hitting her, spitting on her, saying that they're not sick with COVID. Really? Trying to leave once they get tested and are positive, refusing medical care. I mean, you would not believe how the healthcare people are treated, and really they don't need that. They are at their breaking point right now. And anyway, I'll let our...
I'll just read it really quick. Again, not Reddit, anonymous, which is one of the reasons why people post things like this on Reddit, I think, because it is anonymous mostly, if you want to be, and that's so there's no way to verify this isn't just completely made up. But and I'll read it really quick. I'm an ICU doctor and run my own unit. Yesterday I had a gentleman come in with all the classic symptoms: cough, fever, shortness of breath, and of course profound hypoxia. His CXR showed the classic diffuse bilateral infiltrate we've all come to immediately recognize as COVID. I told him he has he likely has COVID, and we're waiting for the PCR results to come back. But in the meantime, we'll start him on oxygen and medical therapy. Well, he did not like that. He immediately went to COVID isn't real and, quote unquote, you're trying to kill me. Of course, he wasn't vaccinated. He wanted to leave the hospital right away. Considering he could barely get a sentence out without needing to catch his breath, I convinced him to at least spend the night. Fast forward to this morning, lo and behold, he's COVID positive. Well, he absolutely flipped his shit, accused us all of all sorts of things. He immediately asked to leave the hospital. Again, at this point, he was on 100% oxygen on a high-flow nasal cannula, however you say that, essentially one step away from being intubated, which he was adamantly against. He kept pulling his oxygen off, and I kept watching his oxygen saturation dip into the high 70s. I went into the room to talk to him. He understood he was sick. He understood his oxygen levels were low. He understood he needed treatment. He understood leaving before we had a chance to treat him would increase his chance of dying. At every step, he demonstrated capacity to make medical decisions. Besides his baseline delusion about the reality of COVID, he was totally I want to say cognizant, but I'm not sure if that's what and coherent. My hands were tied, It's a hospital, not a prison, and I let him sign himself out. I called the Department of Health to let them know. He got his clothes and belongings and huffed his way out of the hospital. Apparently, he made it halfway to the road when he collapsed. A code was called overhead, and I figured it just may have been the same guy. I went down to ER to confirm my suspicion and saw the ER doc getting ready to intubate. I called out and told him the story that this guy doesn't want intubation or really any medical treatment, so he died. One fewer patient in my full unit. Ouch. That's ouch. So that's the kind of stress that we're talking about here, the kind of madness, the kind of insanity that's happening. If of course this is, I can't say that whether this story is true, but I think that it's not far-fetched from what I understand at this point. Yeah, so let's just take it easy on our doctors and nurses, okay? Let them do their job. It's not worth dying over.
It's not worth dying over. Yeah. And let's just say one more thing about this. Right now, the hospitals in our area are pretty full, and the doctors and nurses are very stressed out. And if you are going for something else, like, I don't know, a heart attack, you may not get a bed because the beds are full of people that have COVID right now. So the amount of stress our healthcare workers are under, constantly just trying to save as many people as they can and having to deal with how many people are dying. They are human beings. They're not just uniforms. And this is impacting them as well. And we need to be a whole lot nicer. If you don't believe in masks, great. Don't go out.
Yeah. And if you don't believe in vaccines, that's
fine too.
That's on you.
Just don't go out.
Then don't.
And if you feel at all sick, or if you've been around anybody that's sick, common sense. Don't get around people so you don't spread stuff you don't need to.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether it could be a cold, the flu, whatever it is. Okay? Yeah. Just be kind.
Be kind. Rewind.
Haha.
All right. I think we're going to kind of cut it off here, right? We're probably coming to the end.
I think that we might revisit this topic at a later date.
I'm sure there's so much that can be said about it. I was actually thinking about, in a way, maybe COVID is a lesson. Like this in this movie we were just talking about, like that. Maybe this is a lesson. We can take a lesson from this and like a learning experience about our society here. Like maybe before. Like COVID could be like a microcosm of something bigger yet to come,
right?
Like climate change. Mm-hmm. That's a much bigger issue that's going to affect everybody in the world. Maybe how we deal with this is, we can learn like from our mistakes. I don't know, but all right. Please contact us at Ben and Melanie Show
at gmail.com.
gmail.com and. Bama P, motherfuckers, peace out.
Bama P. P.
Obama, peace out.
Happy New Year.
Yep, Happy New Year.